Welcome to Explain It. Right now, a huge firestorm is erupting across India's university campuses. And at the very center of it all, new anti-discrimination rules from the University Grants Commission, the UGC. What was meant to create more equity has actually sparked massive protests, political resignations, and even a challenge in the Supreme Court. So, let's get into it. That's what protesters are calling these new regulations, a black law. So, from the get-go, the opposition has been incredibly fierce. Online, you've got hashtags like #RollbackUGC trending for days. People aren't seeing these rules as a step toward justice, but as a genuine threat to fairness on campus. And this is way more than just an online argument. We're talking about students taking to the streets in Delhi, Lucknow, all over. A public interest litigation, a PIL, has been filed in the Supreme Court, basically saying these rules aren't even constitutional. And then, in a really dramatic turn, government officials, including a city magistrate in Uttar Pradesh, have actually resigned in protest. This has blown up into a full-scale national controversy. So yeah, that brings us to the big question we're going to try and unpack today. What is actually in these regulations that has caused such a massive backlash? To really get why everyone is so divided, we've got to first understand what the rules actually say. All right, let's decode these regulations, because this isn't just a minor update. It's a fundamental change from how things used to be. Okay, so here's the most crucial point. The old guidelines from 2012, they were pretty much just suggestions. Institutions were encouraged to follow them, sure, but there wasn't much real consequence if they didn't. These new 2026 regulations, they are legally binding. They're mandatory for every single university and college in India. Compliance isn't a choice anymore. Now, pay close attention to the wording here, because this specific legal definition is a huge deal. The rules define caste-based discrimination as something that happens against members of three specific groups: scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and, for the first time, other backward classes, or OBCs. This very specific focus is a key reason things are so contentious, and we'll circle back to exactly why in just a minute. And to enforce all this, the UGC is mandating a whole new system on every campus. Every single institution now has to have an Equal Opportunity Center, an equity committee to look into complaints, and even mobile equity squads to keep an eye on potential trouble spots. On top of that, there's a 24/7 helpline, and here's the kicker. The head of the institution, the vice-chancellor, the principal, they're now held directly responsible if things go wrong. And this just shows you how serious they are about speed and accountability. The process is now on a super strict timeline. Once a complaint is filed, the Equity Committee has just 24 hours to meet. An inquiry report has to be ready in 15 working days, and the college has to take action within a week of that. This is a world away from the old system where a complaint could just sit there for months or even years. So why do all this? Why such a drastic change? Well, this number is the UGC's main reason. This is the increase in reported caste-based discrimination complaints that they received over the last 5 years, 118%. That staggering jump, plus pressure from the Supreme Court, basically convinced the UGC that the old advisory system was broken and something much, much stronger was needed. So we get the rules and we get why the UGC felt they had to act, but this brings us right to the core of the conflict. Why are so many people calling these same rules biased and unfair? Let's get into the great equity debate. Okay, the first major point of conflict is who gets to be on these new equity committees. Supporters say that mandating seats for members from SC, ST, OBC, women, and disabled communities is absolutely essential. The logic is that it ensures people who have actually experienced marginalization are in the room when decisions are made. But critics immediately point out that there's no mandated seat for the general category. They're afraid this creates a committee that's biased from the start and might just presume that anyone from an unreserved background is guilty. The second big fight is about false complaints. See, an earlier draft of these rules had a penalty for students who filed malicious complaints, but that was dropped from the final version. Supporters say, good, that was the right call, because the fear of being punished could stop real victims from ever coming forward. But critics are totally alarmed by this. They argue that with no safeguards, the system can be easily misused, leaving students and teachers vulnerable to baseless accusations that could destroy their careers. And that brings us right back to that definition of discrimination we talked about. Supporters argue that the rules are doing the right thing by focusing protection on the communities that have been historically oppressed and are the most vulnerable. But critics, including the ones who took this to the Supreme Court, say the law itself is now discriminatory.
By defining caste discrimination as something that only happens to SC, ST, and OBC students, they argue it leaves general category students with zero institutional protection if they're the ones facing caste-based harassment.
This quote really just captures the core fear that's driving all the opposition. The concern is that in the effort to protect some groups, these regulations have accidentally created a system that sidelines another, treating a whole category of students not as equals, but as potential suspects.
So, with these deep divisions, where do we possibly go from here? Can a middle ground be found? One that protects vulnerable students without making others feel targeted? This brings us to the question of balance.
The people challenging these regulations are proposing some key changes. First, they're calling for the rules to be amended to guarantee representation from all student categories on those committees, to make them balanced. They are demanding clear, fair penalties for complaints that are proven to be false and malicious. And at the most basic level, they're arguing that these protections and grievance systems should be there for every single student, no matter what community they come from.
Ultimately, this entire massive nationwide controversy really boils down to this one fundamental question. As this whole thing plays out in the courts and on campuses, India is grappling with a challenge that societies all over the world are facing. How do you build a system that fixes historical wrongs and protects the vulnerable, but also upholds the principles of fairness and due process for absolutely everyone? It's a tough one, and there are no easy answers.